dad. So I'm looking at Paulino. I'm focused on the fact that I'm going to punch him as soon as he moves. As soon as he moves, I go with the fist or I go with the bug. It can be any of the punches we've done before. Jig, Wanja, whatever.
MMA is a very specific context and a very specific situation.
It's two athletes these days. It's no longer
one style against another, which is how the UFC was born in '93. Anyway, in Japan, once again, I've Japanese Suto MMA with Sensei and Nakamura, both in the United States and in Japan. Suto was born in the 80s, late 80s, and they were already doing MMA as it's known, right? And with weight divisions. The thing is that it was an amateur sport, and in Japan, and people didn't know much about it. But I mean, Suto was born in the late 80s. The first UFC was in '93. Because it's a direct punch, doing it right, no telegraphing. And it's a hit. It's what Silobra called a scientific punch. He would say, what's the best way to do a punch? He would say, reach out and throw the guy to the ground. They would go to a school and literally ask who the best fighter was and beat the crap out of him. So with their ground fighting knowledge at that time, which was pretty much exclusive to their family in Brazil in the early days, they could do it easily. That's the idea that they later brought to the UFC in '93, which was a worldwide success and made Jiu-Jitsu explode. But as I said, they were already doing it in Brazil 20 minus something years before, and in Japan. It was already being done at an amateur level, but with weight classes. And the idea was kind of the same as what Silo Bruce Lee had with Jeet Kune Do, which was to be a complete martial artist, but in a sports environment. Bruce Lee's idea was for the street. It was self-defense for the street, where anything was valid that served your purpose, which is to survive or end the fight as quickly as possible. I mean, fingers the eyes, punches the groin to the genitals, if necessary, pulling hair, biting, anything. Pattern. Freedom is within the pattern. On the contrary, the pattern is not within freedom. So in Jeet Kune Do, we talk a lot about freedom, using no path as a path, etc. But you have to start with a pattern. That's what we call it in Junu Irama Science. It's the basic system. We follow the pattern, okay? And then dissolve the pattern. But we always say that Jeet Kune Do is a process, is the same in any martial art or in life. But in the end, it's like a process. You have to adapt. You adapt it to yourself, to your age, to your preferences, to your taste, to the situation you have in life, whatever it may be. You have to keep adapting, and that's very important. The adaptation, not just freedom in the broad sense of the word, I can do whatever I want, but more than doing whatever I want, it's adapting to what's best at the moment, depending on the opponent I have in front of me. Hey, Jeet Kune Do. I started when I was 18. I started training it as soon as I was old enough to start moving and getting out of here, my city. And well, I started because I'd been doing karate since I was a kid, which was the only thing you could do here in Cieza at that time. And I was always reading whatever was available at that time in the 90s. And I came across the Tado del Jeet Kune, which is the quintessential book of Jeet Kune Do, which is a compendium of notes that Bruce Lee made, and they put it together in a book and they agree. This is the concept of before, during and after, very important. Or is it actually the opposite after, during and before, okay? Okay, that's the way, as I said before, it's a process. So the easy way. In all traditional martial arts, what do? Block and then counter, block and then counter, block and then counter. You always block first, that's the easy way, okay? So look, to start simple, you can choose left guard, right guard, always try to train with both. Normally we train the good guard first, good leg in front in Jeet Kune Do, okay? Then you can switch. Some people prefer the left first, okay? You can do it however you want. He's gonna hit with the low jab and he's gonna put that mitt right there next to the face. Okay, I'm gonna do the hack first, boom, and then I'll hit with the jab up. That's number one, which is after. It means I block first and then I hit. Then he goes back and does a kick. That can be a roundhouse or a frontal kick. I hit the genitals, okay? It would be a frontal or circular kick, completely frontal, if you do it from the front click, or if you do it circular, completely circular to the genitals, okay?
So I defend and hit in 2 steps, then the kick, simple and direct attack. 1, 2, 3, and I go back.
And well, I read that and I was fascinated by it. But yeah, anyway, well, does it? And I tried to see different things at the time with the age I was and the resources that were available. And as soon as I was old enough, well, I started training, started going to Alicante, which is where the closest instructor was in Spain. There were 3 or 4 actually, Madrid, Barcelona, and well, anyway. I think Valencia, Madrid, Andalusia, there were some, but there were very few and very, well, in cities usually far away. And that's how I started.
Number 1, I'm gonna do 3. Number 2 is exactly the same thing that I'm gonna do. When he attacks, pop, you only hear 1 beat. He attacks, boom, 1 beat. He goes back, kicks, and I go back. See how I hit and do a pendulum? It's a simple attack. Okay, number 2, simultaneous and kick. Simple and direct attack. Okay, number 3 is before, which is the basic idea of Jeet Kune Do. The last stage was to intercept it, to hit before he hits. Do you see that sound, Dad? But the first thing is the hit. First the hit, then the defense. I wait for his attack, boom, and he leaves. Simple attack, I go back. Okay, you have it. Simultaneous, sorry, number 1. Number 2, simultaneous at the same time. Number 3, I hit for 8 and defend later, if necessary. Many times he tries to hit, but when I hit his hit, it doesn't reach, I'm a move. That's fine. Okay, but I have to cover just in case. So stop. He leaves. Boom, I'm ready.
Well, there are people who think that lately Jeet Kune has become a little more theoretical than practical. Practical. How do you see it?
Well, that's always existed, I think. There have always been 2 lines, so to speak, but it's kind of natural. I think in any martial art. Then it also happened with, or is happening with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example. Exactly the same. There's the classic old school version, they call it the old school, more focused on self-defense like it was in the beginning. And then there's the more sporty or more modern version with guards, bear and bull, 50-50, guard X, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of natural in human beings. I don't think it's always possible to create one when there's a trend, to create a counter trend, and Filipino arts have also been happening for a long time now, since there are also 2 strands, right? More, as if we were to say, more focus on effectiveness, only on what works. Works. And then there's another line that's a bit more open, a bit more focused, as we've talked about before, right? Not only from a physical perspective, but also not only physically in terms of effectiveness, but also physically in terms of health. Physically in terms of growing, mentally, intellectually, always continuing to learn, evolving. I mean, in the end, having 2 sides, when you train different martial arts, you realize it's quite natural. And Jeet Kune Do happened a bit like that. There was Guru Santos, he was the visible head of Jeet Kune Do. Partly to his regret, because he wasn't the same either. He trained different martial arts and he didn't want to people to think of him only in that sense, but he was a bit of a torchbearer at that time of Jeet Kune Do, and then over time, a counter lineage to that emerged. Okay, they were basically his students, because in the end, as I say, he was the one who was a student. Some of them were Bruce Lee's students. But in the end, they were more his students than Bruce Lee's, because Bruce Lee was making movies and he basically stopped by the school 1 day a week to see what they were doing. But the instructor at that school was Seifutan Rosariano.